it is impossible to really have any understanding of the present situation without an understanding of Trotsky's analysis, which is bound up with the whole history of the socialist movement in the 20th century. That point was made in particular in relationship to an understanding of fascism, what it is, what its social political function is. This is not a place where we can discuss this in greater detail, but Trotsky's writings on Germany retain enormous relevance, are really essential in understanding these political questions, of course, changing what needs to be changed in the present situation. But the theory of permanent revolution is a vast subject. It emerged originally in an analysis of the development of the socialist revolution in underdeveloped countries, or the development of the revolution in underdeveloped countries. And the essential point that Trotsky stressed in relationship initially to the developments in Russia was that the bourgeoisie was incapable of carrying out the democratic task traditionally associated with bourgeois revolutions, like was had in the United States, the first bourgeois revolution, and then the second, the U.S. Civil War, which Eric referred to, but that in underdeveloped countries, due to the character of the bourgeoisie, its dependence upon imperialism, its relationship to the landed aristocracy, that it was incapable, and its fear of the working class, which was already developing as a powerful social force. I'm speaking in particular of Russia, that the bourgeoisie was incapable of carrying out the democratic tasks, and that the democratic task, the realization of the democratic tasks, fell to the working class. And the working class, in fighting for power, could not restrain itself to simply the democratic bourgeois revolution. It would be compelled necessarily to carry out socialist measures. And that was the theory of permanent revolution. I'll get to the second element shortly, but I think it's very important in relationship to the present situation, because one can say that all basic questions of democracy, the defense of democracy, is bound up with the mobilization of the working class. There is no faction of the capitalist class that has any commitment. And the idea that one could defend democratic rights and, in fact, develop an enormous expansion of democracy, except through a frontal attack on the wealth of the capitalist oligarchs. You have a tiny layer of the population which controls vast wealth, and connected to that vast wealth controls the gigantic corporations, then the banks, firms like BlackRock with $11.5 trillion in assets, or JP Morgan Chase, and these gigantic companies, which are controlled by a tiny layer of the population. You can't defend democracy. I mean, it is incompatible with such levels of social inequality. And so it's dependent upon the working class, all basic democratic questions, and nothing is settled in the United States. So the defense of democracy, and this, of course, is not just a question of the United States, these are present in every country, is inseparable from the development of a movement in the working class. The second, or critical, central element to the theory of permanent revolution, bound up with the first, was that that the development of the revolution is global in character. This was developed again in relationship to the analysis of the dynamic of the revolution in Russia initially, that it had to be seen, and this is one of Trotsky's great theoretical political insights, not as a national revolution, but as a component part of a global revolution. And whereas capitalism may have not, or the development of the productive forces may have not reached such a point within Russia to allow for the full development of socialism, the development of capitalism on a global scale meant that the task of socialist revolution was not just ripe, it was overripe. And that was expressed above all in the eruption of imperialist war, the First World War in 1914, and then the Second World War in 1939. And the perspective, the theory of permanent revolution was the strategy of world socialist revolution, that none of the problems confronting workers in any society could be addressed on a national scale. The working class itself is an international class, united in the process of production. Again, this point was made in the report at Frankfurt Books Fair, and I would again encourage everyone to watch that. But if you consider any commodity, it is the product of a global division of labor, often involving millions of workers all over the world, from the production of raw materials to the manufacturing of technological commodities, cell phones, cameras, computers, automobiles. There is no such thing as actually a national product. Everything is the product of a global division of labor. We live in a global economy. The basic source of war is the conflict between a global economy and the nation-state system, as rival capitalist class compete over resources. What's in the Middle East that has been connected to the US imperialism support for Israel over an extended period of time? Oil, natural gas, control over the Middle East, and now it's going to be focused on the escalation of the war against Iran, is bound up, therefore, with control over the world economy, is bound up with the conflict with Russia, the conflict with China. I referred to this essay in the Foreign Affairs. Their central focus is the coming war with China. When they're talking about total war, that's what they're speaking about. So it's rooted in these global processes. But to get back to the point, the working class itself is an international class. And we live in a global economy. And the problems we confront are global, and the solutions are global. There is no national solution. And in terms of how we are fighting for this in the working class and through our campaign, I mean, how does one oppose the nationalist poison of Trump, or for that matter, the efforts of the Democratic Party to divide workers along racial lines? It is through the fight for an understanding, to make conscious within the working class an understanding of itself as a part of an international class, and that the counter force to imperialist war is the development of a working class movement, socialist revolution on a world scale. And the working class is an enormously powerful social force. It produces everything. All value is produced by the working class. But for that social, that objective power to be realized requires international unification, development of organizations of struggle to break from the restraints of the trade union apparatus, which smothers the class struggle at every turn, and above all, the development of a political consciousness within the working class, a socialist consciousness. And that requires an understanding of history and the lessons of history and assimilation of the history of the Trotskyist movement, Trotsky's own writings, and the subsequent development of the Trotskyist movement throughout the 20th century. The International Committee of the Fourth International, which is the leadership, the World Party of Socialist Revolution, the Trotskyist movement, it is fighting to build this leadership in the working class all over the world. And that is the basic task, in the sense of our election campaign as well.